Good evening, I'm Charlotte Grant. The Deputy Mayor for Housing has told ITV News that building on Greenbelt land is not the answer to London's shortage of affordable homes. He was defending the Mayor's housing policy after the National Housing Federation accused politicians of ignoring a crisis and building just a third of the homes that are needed in the capital. Nick Thatcher's been taking a closer look at the arguments.
Harry and his girlfriend Naomi have just moved into a one-bedroom flat in Leighton. They're renting for now and one day hope to buy, but fear they've already been priced off the property ladder.
So in terms of buying, we're probably going to have to move even further out. I mean, London's just not on the agenda at the moment. And with house prices keeping going up, it doesn't really seem possible to ever buy.
You don't have to go far to find new housing being built. This development is at the end of Harry's Road. But it's estimated that to keep up with demand, London needs 56,000 new homes a year. In 2014, fewer than 19,000 were built, just a third of what's needed, leaving a shortfall of nearly 38,000 homes.
We already have a housing crisis, and if this mismatch continues, then we will really no longer be able to have a housing offer for our children.
And that failure to build more homes right across the capital is pushing prices out of reach for many people. This latest analysis suggests that an income of £100,000 is required to afford a typical mortgage in London.
Building on brownfield sites like this one in Walthamstow remains the preferred option of the Mayor and local councils, with the focus on making homes affordable. But another report today suggests such sites can be complex and costly to develop, and it's time to see the bigger picture. The Green Belt has kept the growth of London contained for decades, but some argue not all of it should be sacred.
There are parts which are protected for environmental reasons, and there are parts which are beautiful countryside. We want to keep those the way they are, but there is scrubland, and there is a scrubland next to transport.
But on tonight's programme, the Deputy Mayor for Housing told us the Green Belt is there for a purpose.
I mean, the truth is that London has a vast amount of undeveloped land already within its boundary, and what we need to do is focus on how do we get that brought to market. The Mayor has set out probably the most comprehensive plan of any big city in the world to address that, and we're investing billions.
But as London grows, so too will the demand for housing. Radical solutions will be required if thousands of people who work here can no longer afford to live here. Nick Thatcher, ITV News.
A soldier has described the moment he saw two members of his patrol killed in a suspected case of friendly fire in Afghanistan. Captain Tom Sawyer from Hertfordshire was one of those who died when an anti-tank missile landed on their position. His colleague, Sergeant Guy Bates, has told an inquest that he heard a whoosh before it made an impact. Police are hunting for a man who threatened a shop worker with a 10-inch knife in a robbery. They've released CCTV which shows a man brandishing the blade at a store on Balham High Road. He demanded money from the cashier before thrusting the knife at him and stabbing him in the hand. Officers are asking anyone who witnessed the attack last Wednesday to come forward. An official complaint has been made to the FA after West Ham fans were allegedly heard mocking disabled people. The offensive chanting was reported by former Irish footballer Kevin Kilbane, who was told about it by a close friend following West Ham's match against Tottenham on Sunday. It comes just a day after a video emerged appearing to show fans of the club chanting anti-Semitic abuse on a train. And the two men who created the dramatic Tower of London poppy installation were honoured today for their work. Sculptor Paul Cummins and the theatre designer Tom Piper received MBEs in recognition of blood-swept land and seas of red, which was viewed by millions of visitors, marking the start of the First World War. Here's Glenn Goodman.
For a brief moment in time, it became as iconic as the Tower of London itself. The sea of poppies drew people from all over the world to witness a spectacle as beautiful as it was moving.
Mr. Paul Cummins, for services to art and...
So it wasn't a huge surprise that the creators were honoured with MBEs. Certainly not a surprise for Prince William, who'd previously met them at the installation.
He was happy that we did it, and he basically said he knew we'd see you later. But Kate and Will and Harry came, it just picked it up a level, and more people took notice.
I kind of thanked him for giving it a kind of momentum, which the visit did, but he denied all responsibility for any of its success and claimed it was all down to Paul and me.
Sculptor Paul Cummins is planning to move on from the theme of war. For his next project, he'll create hundreds of thousands of ceramic tulips. But the big question is, will he and theatre designer Tom Piper renew their successful partnership?
I'm happy to work with Paul if he wants, to do a big project involving me, but that's sort of up to Paul, really.
So it's a yes from Tom.
I've got a small project in the middle of this year and a few larger projects in Europe in the next couple of years.
Ouch. A bit non-committal there, Paul. But he'll be hard-pressed to top his partnership with Tom, a collaboration which may one day be seen as legendary in the art world. Glenn Goodman, ITV News.
And next, it was never made into a TV series, but a taste of CSI London has now come to the capital. A new exhibition in forensics shows visitors the link between science, art and history, recreating real-life crime scenes, the brain of a suicide victim and sketches from the site of one of Jack the Ripper's murders. Lucrezia Millerini went to the Welcome Collection for a look around.
From crime scene to courtroom. This is a rather gruesome history of forensic science. Murder weapons, human remains, even an actual mortuary fridge. It is the latest exhibition at London's Wellcome Trust, and as curator Lucy Shanahan explains, it is not one for the squeamish.
This particular piece of work that we have in front of us here by the Mexican artist Teresa Margolis is an actual segment of a crime scene from Mexico. It was the floor from the studio of an artist friend of hers who was murdered there in cold blood, so it has incredible resonance.
One room, entitled The Morgue, is dedicated entirely to the history of pathology.
This is an early 20th century mortuary slab made by Royal Dalton, the famous ceramicists, and was extracted from a mortuary in Rotherhithe in southeast London.
How can so much horror be visited on such a small area?
Perhaps too grim for some, but our fascination with death and detection continues to spawn countless films and TV shows. And while the stories may differ, what unites them all is the application of forensics to solve the mystery and find out who done it.
I guess it's something to do with trying to make sense of how one human being can inflict so much pain or even death on another human being, but also perhaps reflecting on our own vulnerability and the possibility that this could affect any one of us.
Sherlock Holmes, perhaps the most famous of all fictional sleuths, but it was the scientists and the criminologists of the past who laid down the foundations for how we solve crime today. It was compelling forensic evidence that convinced a jury to convict the infamous Dr. Crippen for the murder of his wife after samples were taken from a body found buried in his house in Camden. But with the advance of DNA testing, even that is now called into question.
It's been suggested that perhaps some of that DNA has been retested and implies that it may be male. So perhaps the body found in Dr. Crippen's cellar was not that of his wife, but could have been somebody else.
Forensic science is ever evolving, as is our somewhat morbid fascination. Forensics, the Anatomy of Crime, opens this Thursday and runs until June. Lucrezia Millerini, ITV News.
Now, there's been some welcome sunshine across much of the capital today, but will it last? Let's take a look at the forecast now with Helen Plint.
No, I do not want to be a snowman's nose. Thank you very much. The cheek of it.
Hello again. Another beautiful sunset tonight, but it's not to last. The clouds are building ahead of a fairly mild but dull day tomorrow, and we see some more rain heading in on Thursday as well. So overnight tonight, all that cloud building brings with it a few outbreaks of rain. They track in from the west and reach all parts pretty much by dawn tomorrow morning. So it will be a grey and dull start for many. That lingering rain for a time, but a couple of brighter breaks later on. Fairly decent temperatures as well, so feeling pleasant if you do catch a sunny break. Bye for now.
New Covent Garden Soup sponsors the ITV London weekday weather.
Finally tonight, introducing the coolest mum on the school run, or certainly the mum with the coolest car. Rachel Sims bought a replica of an American police car, a Dodge Avenger, after it was used to promote a computer game. It comes complete with flashing lights, but the police are happy for her to drive it because they don't think it can be confused with the real thing.
I knew it was going to bring a little bit of attention, but I didn't know how much attention. But yeah, it's quite funny. Every day is a different reaction from somebody else.
I have had the police come stop us to have a look at it and actually jump in the car and get the photographs took. And because I had a friend in the back of the car, he joked around saying, "Oh look, we've even got a prisoner on the back of the car."
So where are you likely to spot the patrol car itself? We can find out on our website at itv.com/London. And that is it from the London team. We're back on air tomorrow with updates during Good Morning Britain. Until then, have a lovely evening.